So what if I told you you can actually start your own dropshipping business for $50 or less? Well, in this video, through my experience, I want to be sharing with you guys exactly on how to do so. This can be for a hobby, whether you want to start an e-commerce store, or for your retail store wherever you are around the world. So let's get started. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It will take time and effort, especially if you want the cheapest way to start right now. If you have a little bit of investment money, of course I would go through another video on how to do that, but this is the absolute cheapest way to do so, and it won't happen overnight. Okay, so let's talk about the things you absolutely need to get started, and this is non-negotiable unless you go into the black market, which I don't recommend because there are a lot of scams out there. Number one is a passport. You need a passport because this is the identification method used for foreigners, unless you have like a green card, to be able to use the systems in China. So most passports should work. If you're on the blacklist of countries, and I can put the blacklist of countries in the description down below, then it won't work even if you have a passport. The next thing you need is $50 and a bank card. You need some kind of a Visa or MasterCard in your account and at least $50 in my recommendation just to get started. Other than that, then you're gonna need some kind of a product idea. You can think of something that you already use on a daily basis or something related to your hobby. And lastly, friends and family that you can reach out to. I'll go into more detail on why this is on the list, but think of this as like your first customer base. So step number one is to set up your payment gateway. This is probably the most headaches you're gonna experience in China or trying to buy stuff on these platforms. As I mentioned, you only have $50 to start with, right? So I'm trying to think of the cheapest method here. And to be frank, the cheapest is when you pay the local suppliers in their local currency, not if you pay them in USD. So if you use AliExpress, yeah, you can pay them in USD and they would include the shipping. But if you just want to test this out and get it started in a budget, I don't recommend you do that. You still can, by all means, but from this tutorial, I'm just going to go through the cheapest way. So I recommend you set up one of two platforms so that you can actually pay suppliers in China. Number one is Alipay. With the passport, you can actually set up an Alipay Tour Pass account. It's not the same system as Alipay, but it's a subsystem that you can use to actually pay suppliers. Note that they do charge a 5% fee every time you do a transaction, and you can simply watch this video up here that I'll put on exactly how to get started with that. Now, if you're not a fan of Alipay, which I definitely prefer over WeChat Pay, you can also use WeChat Pay, but just realize that there aren't as many platforms that accept WeChat Pay payments in China as compared to Alipay, as Alipay is the monster of the payment platforms because they have Taobao, 1688, and all that. But if you really want to use WeChat Pay, you can check out this video on how to get that activated. But as a warning, it is a lot more complicated than setting up the Alipay Tour Pass, and you have to jump through a lot of hoops. It's not so black and white. So if I had to make a decision, I'd recommend you use Alipay Tour Pass. Once you actually have this set up, which takes maybe 3 days if it's ideal, and maybe 1 or 2 weeks if there are problems, then you want to make sure you want to at least have $10 to $20 for the product before you actually make the purchase in your bank account so you're ready to go. So now, step number two is to find the product you want to sell. Now, as I mentioned before, there are platforms like AliExpress that accept USD as payments, but you want the cheapest, right? So in this example, I'll use Taobao. Just think of any hobbies you have, anything you might buy on a regular basis, and try to search the product on Taobao. You want to stay within the range of maybe $5 to $20 at most, because we haven't considered shipping yet. And find one you think is suitable with regards to your friends and family, or like your circle of friends that they may like similar products. In my case, I tested this out with anime. I'm a fan of watching anime, and there's a lot of anime figures in China, and you can actually find pretty cool designs in Taobao and sell them overseas at a pretty stepped up price, no problem. Now with the product, I recommend you stay away from liquids, batteries, or any hazardous items that you may want to sell, because the shipping can be very expensive for these methods, especially if you don't know a channel and you're doing it for the first time. You can reach a lot of issues, not only exporting the product, but also importing it when it arrives to your home country. And you want to make sure this product is less than 2 kg because the shipping price will be affected. You want to go with the China EMS or China Post method. That's called the e-packet, that accepts packages of 2 kg or less at very minimal pricing to major countries like the United States, Canada, etc. It's also good to check if the couriers can actually ship to your country. So if you're like in the middle or in the heart of Africa, you may need to find a specialized freight forwarder to ship those goods. And I can do so if you just add my WeChat up here. I can add you to some groups that they help you with shipping your goods overseas. So now that you solved the issue with the payment gateway and you found the products, now let's go on to the third part, which is calculating all the costs. So you want to calculate the total cost that comes with shipping the item. So that's the product itself, the shipping, and any duties or taxes that you may encounter in your country. I recommend starting off in one country first so that you get familiar with it, because if you want to sell to all of Europe, you're going to run into some problems when it comes to importing the goods at the port, and the goods may be confiscated depending on what the item is. In the end, you want the total price to be around $30 and some change. That includes shipping and the product. If you don't know how to calculate the shipping, I'll link a website right here in the card or in the description down below on how to calculate the shipping. You can also use my sourcing website, and I'll put that in the description down below on how to calculate shipping to different parts around the world. Now you can see there's a lot of research going on. Again, I told you this isn't going to be easy. It's going to require a lot of effort just to get it started and try it out. And after you found that magic product that you can ship it for around $30 to $35, you want to add 30 to 40% profit margin for oopsies. Like, of course, you want to make money out of the transaction, but let's say you made a mistake in the shipping or in the category of the item and it was just a little bit more expensive than you anticipated. At least you have a fallback plan by protecting your profit margins. Step number 4, you have a payment gateway, you have the product, you know the total cost. Now you want to start with the customer first. Do not spend a penny until you have a customer. Remember what I mentioned, that you need to have family and friends or your closest circle of friends? Well, this is where you get started with the word of mouth marketing. You want to create a group, whether a Facebook group, WhatsApp, or whatever, to kind of get feedback on what you're trying to do. These are close friends of yours that they don't mind paying you like $50 to try out a new product. I've actually tested this myself before I even considered launching my website. I made a group and I took manual orders to see if the process was logical and it would work. This was before I even invested a penny onto the platform. So it's important you find the customer first. As a goal, I recommend you find 10 customers. If you can't find 10 customers on your own willing to try this out, this is probably not a decent business model that you want to scale in the future. So reach out to your friends. Don't be like a pyramid scheme or anything like that. Just be honest, be transparent. Tell them you're trying out this new business idea that you have and you need them to test out the system. And just let them know that the time frame may be a little bit extended because it's your first time. Typically, customers wouldn't mind waiting between 1 to 3 weeks, but after the 1 month mark, that's when they kind of get anxious that like they've been part of a scam or something like that. So just be careful when taking note of that. I would choose friends that you trust and that they trust you. You know you have their back and you're not going to run away with their money. Now this is just to get started, okay? Remember, the customer first. Now, step number 5. You have your customer, you have your product, you have the payment gateway, and you know the total cost. You want to test the process. Actually get them to order your product. You can use a middle platform like PayPal or something with buyer and seller protection, whatever it may be. Find a way to get their money, and after you calculate all the costs, charge them accordingly for that product and go through the process. Order the product on Taobao, ship it to your freight forwarder. You can either use my services or you can use someone that I've used right here called Quiza56. In that video, I go through exactly how to go through step by step on how to ship your goods at their warehouse and ship the goods and time it. Like, you want to record everything because this is where you're going to learn about the business model and see if it's suitable for you. There's just too many get rich quick schemes out there that they don't test. You need to test before you actually invest money into this. So with that $50, make like 10 orders. Heck, if you can only make 3 orders, whatever. But test the process so that you know if you run into problems, you know how to solve it in the future. For example, they send the wrong product, or you don't have a person in China that can inspect the product before it's shipped overseas. Those are issues you will run into. And if you have the products set up where at the warehouse they can actually check your goods, or if you use my services where I can check your goods before they're shipped overseas, that's great. That means you're comfortable that they can ship it overseas, because once the product leaves China, you're most likely not going to get a refund or return the product at all. Now that's the weakness about doing the cheapest method, as I'm mentioning here. If you go more expensive, which is okay as well, you can try those as well. On AliExpress or Alibaba, they usually have more lenient return policies and refund policies. As you get a couple orders in and you understand the cost of the product, taxes, shipping, all that, and the profit margin, of course, then you can start considering leveling up your business from there. Again, I'm just starting with the lowest amount of cash. So once you've tested this out and your friends are satisfied or not satisfied or give you recommendations, then you can consider making a website on like WooCommerce, Shopify, or even hire someone on Fiverr to make a website for you about a certain niche of product that you want to sell in. So as I mentioned before, if you're like into hobbies like anime, you can sell anime figures on your website, clothing, jewelry, whatever it may be, whatever fits your niche and your market based on your friends. You also want to tell your friends to tell other friends, and this should eventually spiral out. I wouldn't say out of control, but if you provide good services in a timely manner and you have a website where people can land on and consider using your drop shipping services, then you can consider this as a semi-successful business on the side. Of course, when you start evaluating the profit margins and all that, you can start investing more in advertisements like Facebook ads, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever it may be. But before you do any of that, before you spend any money on advertising, you have to test your model to make sure it works. Now, this sounds easy, like in a 10-minute video, it sounds easy to do, but in reality, it takes a lot of time, research, and effort to actually get it started. So don't feel like you're going to be able to do this overnight. I just want to share you my experience on how to get started with the minimal investment possible. As I mentioned before I made my sourcing website, I absolutely tested the process with a few, I think maybe like a dozen people before I even put money in it. And then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go all in with this platform and see what it can come out of it. And there are definitely other ways to level up your business. I just want to share this so that you can get your feet wet before jumping into the pool and figuring out you're in a whole nightmare and you're in a bunch of debt that you invested a lot of money that you didn't even test the business model that would work, and I don't want to put you in that situation. So from this video, you should at least know how to get started. Now let me ask you this question. Have you thought about starting? Why haven't you started yet? What is stopping you? Let me know in the comments down below. If you found value from this video, please hit that subscribe button and that like button, because I really appreciate it and it helps the YouTube algorithm. Anyways, thanks for watching to the end, and let's make sourcing easy.